everyone, welcome back to Actual English. I'm Jennifer Clyde. It's time for lesson 375, and today's topic is the perfect job 2, which means we had the opportunity to listen to what Kelly and Gareth had to say about their ideal job. Today we'll have the chance to listen to what Mary and Martin have to say about their idea of their perfect job, or the perfect job for them. That would be the right way to put it. So, did you think about the perfect job for you, the ideal job for you, what you would like to do? What I found interesting was that all four of them, they mentioned that a job that makes them happy would be their perfect job. The right job for them, the right job for anyone in the world. Whatever makes you happy and brings you joy would be the ideal job. So with that in mind, let's begin by listening to today's Actual Talk conversation.
So when I came here 8 years ago for what was meant to be a little stopover before emigrating to Australia, and has now turned into a marriage and a full-blown living here forever.
Funny how that happens.
It's funny, isn't it? Very funny indeed. I'm now looking at, I've been teaching for 8 years. And it's great fun.
Yeah.
You know, teaching kids is a wonderful experience, but I'm looking at it and wondering, what would I really like to do?
Right. If you could have any job in the world,
Exactly.
what would your dream job be?
Exactly
What would it be?
I think it would be something to do with travel.
Okay.
Like maybe a travel writer. Nowadays, writing has changed. I suppose it would be a travel blogger.
Right.
Or in terms of television, being on TV, following me around, like Lonely Planet style.
Okay. Yeah.
Going out and experiencing new cultures and diving in there.
Now, see, I like that idea. When I first look at it, I'm like, oh, great, you get to travel for free.
Yep.
You never have to be bored in the same place. But like having a family or a wife, do you think it would ever get tiresome?
I should have done that before I got married, actually. So I'm
Right.
thinking about it, yeah. Yeah, I think certainly, as you said, obligations, having a wife, or in the future having children as well, would make it very difficult. But I read an article a couple of weeks ago, actually, of a couple who have been traveling around the world for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And they've got 3 children.
See, and so it could go two ways. It could either kind of separate you and be difficult, or if she was able to come with you, you would grow so much closer. You'd have all those shared experiences that, you know, just brought you so close together.
Yeah, I think that would be a really cool experience.
Welcome back, everyone. That was today's Actual Talk conversation. So these two were talking about the perfect job. What did they say? Let's take a look at the conversation together. First of all, Martin says, when I came here 8 years ago, so this was 8 years ago, for what was meant to be a little stopover before emigrating to Australia. Let's take it up to here. So when did this happen? He's talking about something that happened 8 years ago when he first came to Korea. So he says, when I came here 8 years ago, for what was meant to be, for what was supposed to be, a stopover. What is a stopover? That's a vocab word for today. You might have heard this word several times. You also might have heard of the word layover. But stopover, let's take a look. A stopover is like a very short visit, a very short stop somewhere, Either to eat, either to sleep, or even to visit friends. So think of a stopover as a short or a brief stop somewhere. You're stopping by. 잠깐 들리는 거죠. So what was meant to be a stopover, before emigrating to Australia. It's emigrate with an E, everyone. Migrate, emigrate. You're basically leaving one country to reside or to live or to stay in another country. You can emigrate from one country to another. So he's saying 8 years ago, I was stopping by, okay, Korea, before emigrating to Australia. Now, the and should have been taken out, but he's added that. Has turned, okay, into a marriage and a full-blown living here forever. So we've divided this sentence into two parts. He talks about what he came to Korea for. It was supposed to be a short visit, okay? A short visit before moving to Australia, but it turned into a marriage. Turn into something means to change into something, okay? Change into something. A stopover, a quick visit changed into a marriage and a full-blown living here forever. Full-blown means fully developed, complete, okay? Full-blown, 100% living here forever. And Mary says, funny how that happens. It's interesting how that happens naturally. Very funny indeed, he says. I've been teaching for 8 years and it's great fun. So he talks about what he has been doing. He has been teaching for 8 years in Korea and it's great fun. Now, he means that he really enjoys his job. He enjoys teaching children. Teaching kids is a wonderful experience, but I'm looking at it and wondering, I'm thinking to myself, what would I really like to do? What would I truly like to do? So he's saying, although he enjoys his job, he enjoys teaching children, he's been doing it for 8 long years, but he sometimes thinks and wonders. He asks himself, what would I really like to do? Okay, what would I really like to do? And then he says, right, if you could have any job in the world. Now Mary says, if you could have any job in the world, what would be your dream job? Or what would your dream job be? What would it be? Okay, now Martin says, I think it would be something to do with, something connected to, something relating to what? Travel. Maybe a travel writer. Aha. So this is perhaps what he would choose to be. He would choose to write about traveling, or he would choose to write while he travels around the world. This is what he would like to do, all right? And then he says, nowadays, writing has changed. Writing has changed a lot, and he gives an example. So I suppose it would be a travel blogger. Aha. More than just a travel writer, he would say, I would probably be a travel blogger. Okay, he would be a travel blogger. Or in terms of television, or in terms of, in relation to television, being on TV. Following me around, Lonely Planet style. This is just a name of a program. But he's saying that if it was a job relating to writing, he would like to become a travel blogger. Or if it had to do with a job in television or broadcasting, he would like people, like the camera, to follow him around, okay? Following him around, going out and experiencing new cultures and diving in there. Now, when you dive into something, you're starting something or you're doing something enthusiastically. You're giving something your 100%. You're enjoying doing something. So he's given us 2 examples, either becoming a travel blogger or being on television, having the camera follow him around as he travels around the globe, experiencing new cultures, okay, diving in there. Now I see, she says, now see, I like that idea. She likes that idea. When I first look at it, I'm like, oh, great. You get to travel for free. So you get to travel for free. She's talking about Martin's idea. You never have to be bored. You never have to be bored in the same place. But, she says, like having a family or wife, do you think it would ever get tiresome? So she's asking him this question. Do you think it would ever be irritating? Do you think it would ever be exhausting? Do you think it could ever be boring, tiresome, wearisome? Okay. She's saying, okay, first of all, when you first think about that idea, it's great. You could travel for free. You'll never be bored in one place because you travel to all these different places. But she says, in reality, if you had a family, if you had a wife, do you think it would ever get tiresome? Do you think you would ever be exhausted and bored doing that? And then he says, I should have done that before I got married. Yeah, actually, he says. And he agrees. He says, certainly, as you said, obligations. An obligation is what? Something that you are obliged to do, meaning something that you are required to do, something that you have to do or take responsibility. So he says, yeah, just like you said, or as you said, obligations. There are responsibilities. Having a wife, or in the future, having children, would make it very difficult. So having a wife, having children would make it difficult, would make that dream job difficult. But I read an article a couple of weeks ago, actually, of a couple who have been traveling around the world. They've been traveling. This couple has been traveling around the world for 15 years. Okay, he's read an article. He's read about this couple, and he says they've got 3 children. So, hey, why not? It's not impossible, okay? Moving on, Mary says C, and so it could go 2 ways. It could go 2 ways. What does she mean by go 2 ways? She's saying that there can be 2 situations, 2 circumstances, 2 very different situations. It can go this way and that way. It can go 2 ways. She gives an example. It could either separate you and be difficult. That's one way. Or if she was able to come with you, if your wife was able to join you, you would grow so much closer. Okay, so grow closer would be the other. Okay, there would be 2 ways, she says, right? It could either be A or B. It could bring about negative results or positive results. One way could be that it could separate you and it would be difficult. The other way is that if she says, okay, honey, I'll join you, then you will be happy. Okay? So she says you would have all those shared experiences that just brought you so close together. That is, if you travel together and share those experiences. Moving on. Yeah, I think that would be a really cool experience, he says. So what is he talking about? He's saying that if he were to be able to travel around the world, okay, as he mentioned, becoming a travel blogger or even being on television, having the camera or people following him, filming him like a documentary as he explores different cultures around the world and dives in them, he's saying it would be so nice if my wife agreed to follow me, if my wife agreed to join me on these trips or these travels, it would be wonderful. So he says, I think that would be a really cool experience. It sounds like a wonderful experience. That is, if your family's happy, as much as you are. Okay, anyhow, let's take a listen to the conversation one more time.
So when I came here 8 years ago for what was meant to be a little stopover before emigrating to Australia, and has now turned into a marriage and a full-blown living here forever.
Funny how that happens.
It's funny, isn't it? Very funny indeed. I'm now looking at, I've been teaching for 8 years. And it's great fun.
Yeah.
Teaching kids is a wonderful experience, but I'm looking at it and wondering, what would I really like to do?
Right. If you could have any job in the world,
Exactly.
What would your dream job be?
Exactly
What would it be?
I think it would be something to do with travel.
Okay.
Like maybe a travel writer Nowadays, writing has changed. I suppose it would be a travel blogger.
Right.
Or in terms of television, being on TV, following me around, like Lonely Planet style.
Okay, yeah.
Going out and experiencing new cultures and diving in there.
Now, see, I like that idea. When I first look at it, I'm like, oh, great, you get to travel for free.
Yep.
You never have to be bored in the same place. But like having a family or a wife, do you think it would ever get tiresome?
I should have done that before I got married, actually.
Right.
Thinking about it, yeah. Yeah, I think certainly, as you said, obligations, having a wife or in the future having children as well, would make it very difficult. But I read an article a couple of weeks ago, actually, of a couple who have been traveling around the world for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And they've got 3 children.
See, and so it could go two ways. It could either kind of separate you and be difficult, or if she was able to come with you, you would grow so much closer. You'd have all those shared experiences that, you know, just brought you so close together.
Yeah, I think that would be a really cool experience.
Welcome back, everyone. Did you listen carefully to the actual talk conversation? Okay, I hope that you now have a better understanding of what these two were talking about. Once again, we're talking about the perfect job, the ideal job. Okay, let's take a look at some vocab words taken straight out from today's actual talk conversation and then move on to 3 patterns to practice them together in more detail. The first vocab word we have for you is stopover. As you see, the stress goes where? Right there on the first syllable. It's stopover. Stopover. Martin talked about how his first, visit, or the reason he came to Korea, was supposed to be a stopover before immigrating to Australia, I believe. Now, a stopover was what? A short stop, especially in the course of a travel or a tour. So it's a short stop, either to eat or to sleep or even to visit a friend or friends. So a layover is another one, as I explained to you. Halt or a pause, stopover. Now, I just even mentioned emigrate. Here we go, stress goes right there. It's not in, it's emigrate, 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 meaning to move abroad. To emigrate means to leave one country in order to settle in another country, okay? To reside in another country. Moving on to our next vocab word, tiresome, okay? Something can be tiresome. Something can be very exhausting. It can be boring, annoying, irritating. So if something causes you to feel really tired, not just tired physically, but even mentally, for example. If something is stressing you out, annoying you, irritating you, even boring you, you can say, oh, this is tiresome. What about obligation? Here we go, obligation. Stress goes on the third syllable, obligation, obligation. We're talking about a responsibility. Something that you are bound to do, something that you are obliged to do. Can be an obligation, such as a responsibility or even a burden sometimes. An obligation can be very stressful because it's something you have to do. So in some cases, it could mean a burden or a type of pressure. Okay, responsibility, obligation. Commitment is another good synonym for obligation as well. Okay, let's move on to our first pattern for today. Turn into something or someone, meaning to change into something or someone, okay? Here is a sample sentence. Their relationship turned into a disaster after the incident. So what are we saying? Their relationship changed into a disaster, okay? Which means that they perhaps broke up, didn't really work out, okay? Their relationship turned into a disaster after the incident, after the fight, after the argument, okay? Moving on to our next one, we've got full-blown. This means to have, all the characteristics necessary for something to be complete, fully developed, okay? Full-blown, as I told you, the easiest way to put it would be 100%, full-blown, to the maximum, okay? if we don't find a venue for Joe's surprise party, now if we don't find a venue, meaning a place to hold Joe's surprise party, we'll have a full-blown crisis in our hands. Simply put, we're saying, if we don't find a place to throw Joe's birthday party, we're going to be in big trouble. We're going to have a big problem. Okay? Let's try this sentence one more time. If we don't find a venue for Joe's surprise party, we'll have a full-blown crisis in our hands. Now, moving on to our last pattern for today. To dive in or dive into something. It means to start something enthusiastically. You've got all the energy to do something. A sample sentence is, the students enjoyed diving in their science projects. So the students enjoyed diving in their science projects. What does it mean? Okay, they really enjoyed, working on their science projects. They started their science projects enthusiastically with all the energy needed. Okay, the students enjoyed diving in their science projects. Now, everyone, what's left for you to do? We'll go over the vocab words and the patterns more on your own. Job well done.
When I think about what my ideal job is, the question I have to ask myself is, what do I most like spending my time doing? For me, the answer is playing music. This started as a hobby, and now I do it part-time, but ideally, I would do it full-time. Even beyond that, in a perfect world, I would get to do it exactly the way I want. I would write and record music at home, and then every couple of years, maybe, do a big tour around the world performing for audiences. This would be perfect because I would have artistic control and control over my time. If I was raising a family, I could spend time with my children, and I could take vacations whenever I wanted. That would be the perfect job.
Now, Carl is from Canada, and he's mentioned some wonderful things. He began by mentioning that he asks himself this question, what do I most like spending my time doing? What do I enjoy doing the most is the question he asks himself, or he asked himself, and he came up with the answer. Okay, let's take a look at it together. What was it about? He said this started as a hobby. He's talking about doing music, playing music, right? Recording music. He says it started, or this started as a hobby. In the beginning, it was a simple hobby, and now I do it part-time, from time to time. But ideally, he's saying, but what I would really like to do is to do it full-time. All right. So he's given us these steps. In the beginning, it was a hobby. Okay, and now he enjoys playing music or doing music part-time, from time to time, occasionally. But what would he really like to do? He would really like to do music, play music, create music, record music, full-time, all the time. Okay, moving on. And beyond that, plus, simply put, in a perfect world, I would get to do it exactly the way I want. He's talking about what? Recording music at home, whenever he wants to, wherever he can, all right? This would be perfect. Why? Because I would have artistic control and control over my time. Now, having artistic control basically means that he could express art. He could express music. He could express whatever he wants to through music, whichever way he wants to, because he has control. He has the power, okay? So he could have that. Also, he would have control over his time, meaning what? He can create music anytime he wants to, whenever and wherever he is. Okay, and taking us to our very last part of today's actual story, he says, and I could take vacations. That's right, you take vacations. Take vacations whenever I wanted. Sure. Yeah, I guess if you do things such as music full-time, you can choose to work whichever hours you wanted to, whichever day you wanted to, and take vacations much more freely. That's true. Sounds like a wonderful job, the perfect job for Kyle. Okay, let's take a listen one more time.
When I think about what my ideal job is, the question I have to ask myself is, what do I most like spending my time doing? For me, the answer is playing music. This started as a hobby, and now I do it part-time, but ideally, I would do it full-time. Even beyond that, in a perfect world, I would get to do it exactly the way I want. I would write and record music at home, and then every couple of years maybe do a big tour around the world performing for audiences. This would be perfect because I would have artistic control and control over my time. If I was raising a family, I could spend time with my children, and I could take vacations whenever I wanted. That would be the perfect job.
It's always fun to listen to what other people have in mind, what other people would love to do, right? When they share their experiences, when they share their stories, their hopes and their dreams. It's always very interesting, isn't it? Today we had the chance to listen to what Kyle wanted to do, or yes, wanted to do full-time or have as a full-time job. We also had the privilege to listen to what Mary and Martin had to say about their ideal jobs. Yeah, I think a lot of people just want the freedom to do whatever they want to do, right? So think about what you would love spending time doing. What makes you happy? What brings you joy? Okay, perhaps we can just at least spend a few minutes thinking about the ideal jobs for us, right? Okay, anyhow, that was our topic for today. Next time we'll talk about a brand new category, a brand new topic. We'll talk about Winter Wonderland, Part 1, and focus on activities and sports. So we'll talk about outdoor winter activities or sports. I guess as we age, we don't really engage in that much or diversity of these winter activities, but definitely it's a great season for children to go out and have fun in the snow, right? We'll talk about that in our next lesson. In the meantime, come to our homepage, everyone. Come on over to www.ebse.co.kr. Look for Actual English with Jennifer. And if you have any comments, feedback, or even questions you want to post them up on our message board. We'll try to get to them ASAP. And also check out our scripts that are uploaded onto our homepage as well. Okay, everyone. Well, hope you enjoyed today's lesson. There's another one to come, so please do join me for that. In the meantime, take care and bye for now.